There are a lot of people who have made do under very difficult circumstances growing up. And because you were not beaten, and because you were not starved, and because you were not left in the house by yourself for hours, because you don't have bruising, you don't have marks, you weren't sexually assaulted, you don't recognize that what you experienced was another form of child maltreatment that actually may have been more harmful to you. Hey, today is a different type of day. If you've watched my videos before, it is about to pour, it sounds like and feels like, so you'll hear the thunder. Okay, to not ramble. I'm working on a project, and in preparing for it, I reviewed some things that I'm saying review. So that means I've seen them before, I've been aware of them, but they really hit me different this time, as I looked at them. And it occurred to me that what I talk about on here, particularly this video is particularly for you moms out there, um, or for you, the mom who has been neglected, who was neglected as a child, and now you're raising your children, and now it's starting to hit you what you didn't have growing up, and how that kind of handicaps you now. But it's also for those of you who were neglected and you really had no idea that you were neglected. That's the part that's really hitting me. That there are a lot of people who have made do under very difficult circumstances growing up, and because you were not beaten, and because you were not starved, and because you were not left in the house by yourself for hours, because you don't have bruising, you don't have marks, you weren't sexually assaulted, you don't recognize that what you experienced was another form of child maltreatment that actually may have been more harmful to you, and certainly affected you more as an adult than other forms of abuse. We don't rate abuses here. Abuse is abuse. It's all tragic. It's all terrible. It's all um, it's all damaging. But there is a certain type of damage that happens when you are experiencing what is a type of abuse or neglect, but it's not recognized by the masses as such, because it's softer in its expression. It doesn't have a lot of signs that people could say, oh, I see that mark on her. That mark doesn't come except by blah blah blah. It's not like that. And so it's easy for it to be mislabeled. It's easy for it to be ignored. And yet it is sinister in the sense that because it lurks, it's internalized, um, it's doing things in that child who now is an adult trying to love on and raise her own children, and can't for the life of her figure out why it's so hard, because she's thinking back and she's like, I had a pretty good childhood. And let me say this right off the top. I know now that we are in a age where people are very aware of the importance of their mental health. And even if they're not seeking therapy regarding their mental health, they have become so familiar with the lingo that they use the lingo even if they don't know what they're really talking about, because they haven't really experienced therapy, experienced um, these vocabulary words that they're throwing around. And so it can sound like people are just blaming other people for their problems. And all we're doing is pointing fingers, which really is what people have been doing since the days of Adam. But that's not what this is. I'm not offering up yet another thing to blame our parents for, or to point to someone else and say, this is why I'm like this and I can't help it. I am not that I can't help it victim chick. That's not me. I am that, wait, what's going on here? Right? That's part of why I love medicine and why I went into medicine, is because I'm like, wait, what is this? What is this called? Where does this come from? Okay, how do we fix that? And how do we keep that from happening again? Like that's literally what our focus is in medicine. And I look at life that way. So this is looking at life, and in this regard looking at motherhood. And for those of us who have found the journey particularly challenging, it's challenging for all of us mamas, but for those of us who have had it, who have found it particularly challenging and can't quite put our finger on like why it's so extra for us, i offer I offer a possibility, and I offer it because I experienced it. And for some reason, I experienced it and knew that's what it was. So I'm talking about emotional neglect, and I knew that's what it was as a kid. I don't know why I knew. You know, the Lord the Lord tells me. I don't know. But I knew that's what it was. I didn't know why I was experiencing it, and I wasn't really sure what effect it would have going forward because I am still a kid. I didn't know that was the name for it, but I knew that that's what I was experiencing. And I knew um, the sadness that it gave me. But beyond that, I didn't understand the magnitude of it. So let me read, because I told you I've been researching. And this term really struck me because all this time I've referred to it as emotional neglect because that's what I was trained to call it. That's what I knew it as. Um, so the background is, in college I was a psychology major, and I did a lot of took a lot of classes in child psych because I knew I wanted to be a pediatrician and I wanted to be able to talk to my patients from a more holistic perspective, like acknowledging the emotional piece of childhood, the what's happening psychologically, because again, I lived those things, or the problematic aspects when things go wrong in childhood. Like I lived that. So I wanted to be more sensitive to it, though I didn't want to be a psychologist. So I come with that background on top of being a pediatrician. So I understand. Yes. It's that type of day. I understood emotional neglect, but this term that I came across recently, emotional deprivation. And it's so much more accurate. Because when people think of child neglect, like if you just say child neglect, people think of this child has not been bathed. This child doesn't have enough clothing, or the clothing that they have is not clean, it's tattered, it's too small, it's too big. They think of a child hasn't been fed. They think of a child who's been left to take care of the children younger than them because the adult has gone about their business doing whatever. That's what they think of when you say child neglect. That's probably what you think of. If I say emotional neglect, you're probably like, what's that? Like what do you mean? Um, emotional deprivation hits it on the head. So like I've said in other videos, my mom um, handled her business in terms of, you know, time to go shopping and get you some clothes, time to, we need to go to the grocery store and get some food. Here's how you do this, here's how you do that. Very matter of fact, dutiful interactions. But she got that stuff done. I wasn't walking around looking unkempt. I was together. The issue is the emotional piece. The issue is after she's checked her list of to do, she's done. It's, go amuse yourself. Go. She's not. She didn't have. We didn't have conversations. We didn't have. Um, she didn't speak into me or speak a lot to me. Um, there weren't. There was no hugs. There was no validation. There was no affirmation. None of these things. So emotional deprivation is deprivation suffered by children when their parents do not provide the normal experiences, producing feelings of being loved, wanted, secure, and worthy. Okay? Withholding love and withholding affection may be more damaging than the verbal and physical assault we are more attuned to when we're talking about child abuse in children. We're more attuned to, if you're out and you see a mother like berating her child and calling them names, and that that's verbal abuse. When you see bruises on a child, that that's physical abuse, but you don't know when somebody has been emotionally deprived. You're not going to see that. You're not going to be in the store and see that. You're not. You'd have to be with that family regularly and paying attention to even notice that, hey, this mother doesn't even hug her child. This mother doesn't really talk to her child other than to tell him or her to go do something or to come here or to take this or to put that. It's very instructional, but it's not nurturing at all. It's not loving. It's not There's no connection. There's no bonding, right? So when I thought about the signs of it in children, and when I saw what the research was, so the thing that stuck out to me, abnormally unresponsive, sad, or withdrawn. And I thought about how when I was a child, people always said I was shy. I was always referred to as shy. And it made sense. Like when I was like, what does shy mean? I was like, okay, well, I'm quiet and I tend to not speak up unless I'm interested in asking a question or unless I've been spoken to. I don't like to be put on the spot. I don't like all eyes on me. So, yeah, I got it. But then to see this abnormally unresponsive, sad, or withdrawn, and I couldn't tell you like the first time I felt depressed because I don't recall a time where I didn't feel a measure of sadness, like just an undercurrent of sadness. Now, I've had episodes of depression where it's gotten worse and deeper and stronger and more visible by anybody looking, or more debilitating because I just don't feel like doing anything. But that sort of through line of sadness, I can't even tell you when that started. That's just always been with me. And I could not for the life of me figure out why. Like, why? Because again, I'm looking around and I mean, a pretty good life. I mean, I didn't feel like there were things, But again, there's abuse that is more of commission, is something that you're doing, and then there's the ones of omission. They're things that you're going without. And it's always more noticeable for the person experiencing it, for those witnessing it, to know that something is happening to you that you don't want. But you're not aware that you're not getting something that you need. Because if nobody told you that you need it, you don't know that you don't have it. So you just sort of make do. And in your making do, you have experiences in your coping. You don't recognize that that's abnormal because you're having to adjust to something that's abnormal, but you didn't know it was abnormal. So I told you this video was a different vibe because I'm processing with you. I'm processing. Normally my videos, I don't, it's not that I have a fully prepared, it's not scripted. I speak from my heart on the issue of motherhood because I'm passionate about it because of my experience in childhood. But this one, I'm digesting this in real time with you because I just recently discovered that there are more pieces. What I missed out on from my mom affected me in more ways than I was aware of, which I need to know because I'm sharing with you as someone who's a champion for moms and wanting you to feel great about motherhood and to feel that you're doing the best that you can, because none of us are doing it perfectly. There's no such thing, but that you're doing it feeling strong, feeling equipped, feeling confident about the way you're approaching it, even though, we don't know. And even though your approach will be different to mine because your children are different to mine because you are different to me. But with the children you have and understanding who you are and what you've been through, that this is how I show up in my role as mom. It's a role. It's not who you are. It's a role. So, yeah, how many of us are walking around? Have you been walking around kind of wondering like, man, this motherhood thing is like super hard for me and I can't quite. I'm looking around at other moms, and yeah, a lot of us are just, putting on that mask. That's why Motherhood Unmasked is taking that off so we can have some real conversation. But there are some moms who are just they're just doing it. They don't know any more than you or I do, but they are comfortable in their role as mom. They're they're sure they're doing the best they can. They're enjoying the journey. They're enjoying their children. It's light. It's a light thing for them. They don't feel any heaviness. They don't feel any um, dread. They don't feel any like they're moving through mud. Like I like I'm pushing against something, but I don't know what it is, or there's something pulling me back. I'm trying to move forward, but there's a weight that I'm pulling and I don't know what it is. I hope I'm making sense. I probably don't, but this is what happens if you process without tightening it up and you're just sharing as you go. But yeah, I wonder if you have been just trudging along, and part of why motherhood is so overwhelming to you and for you is because you didn't realize your handicap. You did not realize what all you went without and how that affects you. So, okay, so let's talk about how deprivation experienced as a child can affect you as an adult. Numbing out or cutting yourself off from your feelings. that practice of disassociating. This feels, say with the sadness, this sadness feels too much for me, and so rather than feel sad, I'd rather feel nothing. And because you don't know what to do with that sadness, you don't know where to take it, you don't know how to explain it, you don't know, you didn't know why you felt so sad, you had no idea it was because emotionally you were not fed, you were starved emotionally. So you didn't know that that's what it was. You just know that you have this sadness. And who are you gonna? As soon as you tell somebody you're sad, they're gonna be like, "Why?" And you can't say why. And so then it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? And so then that's that. And so instead of feeling that perpetual hopelessness, you just sort of cut that off. It's not that it went anywhere. You're still sad. You just decided I'm not going to focus on that. I'm gonna, I don't know what you replaced it with so that you wouldn't have to feel sad, or what mask you put on to pretend that you're not sad, and how much energy that took to go through childhood and into adulthood pretending you didn't feel the way you felt, because if you told somebody how you really felt, you didn't know how to explain it. And who in the world has patience for your ignorance about what's going on with you? And so, why do any of that? Let's just all pretend like everything's fine. How exhausting is that? So, yeah, you don't have the bandwidth for the things going on with your children because you're exhausted pretending, as you have been for years, that you're okay. Maybe I'm just talking about me, but if what I'm saying at all resonates with you, that's why I'm doing this video, because it might cause you to think about some things and reflect on some things, investigate some things. Maybe emotional deprivation is not your issue. Maybe you have another issue. But if it is, and it's been sort of this mysterious thing that you could never get a handle on, I don't know if what I'm sharing might be the thing that helps. Feeling like there's something missing, but not sure what it is. As a kid, I didn't realize the impact of not really having my mom to mentor me, to nurture me, to just be with me in a way that showed that she enjoyed my company, that she loved me and enjoyed being with me. I never had that sense from her and never knew how that would impact me. Never knew the things that I would have to figure out on my own because she just wasn't around to tell me. Um, Something as simple as when you start your cycle. My mom gave me a book. Now that generationally might have been a thing. You might be my age and you're like, my mom gave me a book and said nothing. Just was like, read this book. But I'm telling you, to this day, my mom and I have never had a conversation about female development, cycles, what's happening to your body. Not a conversation. She gave me a book. And quite frankly, maybe that was her doing better than what her mom did for her. Who knows? All I'm saying is, um, I was just like, okay. And I got the book when it started. When it started is when I got the book. So I didn't even have the book in advance. I had the book when it started. So I'm like trying to figure it out while I'm having the flow. And like what that does, what message that sends, like The things that you go through as a woman, right? You're just going to go through that by yourself. There's not going to be another woman that's going to come by and walk through it with you. Certainly not this woman. Not certainly not your mom. You're just going to figure that out by yourself. I didn't even have time to figure out that's what the message I would get because I was so busy trying to read and figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do? So I didn't have time. I'm trying to survive the experience with the little information, the few tools that I had. Here's the pads, here's a book. I had no idea what that would convey to me and what similar experiences like that with her would convey. You just go ahead and figure that out. You go ahead and figure that out. The so so then it would be no wonder then if you're an adult and you get easily overwhelmed or discouraged. If as a woman you get easily overwhelmed. If as a child you had to go through changes, significant changes by yourself, no one asking you how you feel about it, no one asking you what the feelings are you're feeling, not even how you feel about the thing that's happening, but just what are the feelings that you are feeling. Go ahead and express yourself. When there's no room made for that, and the idea is I go through things and I whatever I feel, I have to keep it to myself. That's overwhelming. There's no one who wants to hear. There's no one who wants to or who is willing to discuss it with me. There's no one who's willing to explain what's happening. You just have to go figure it out yourself. So if you take that, because again, your life is a continuum. It's not childhood is here, it stopped at 18, and then now this is happening. That's not how it is. Your life is a continuum. Your childhood is informing your adulthood. Now it's for us to take the information from childhood and the things that are not true, we need to speak truth to them so that now we can go forward embracing the truth. But we have to acknowledge where we have embraced a lie because then you live that lie until you stop and say, wait a minute, that's a lie. This is the truth. And now I'm going from this point forward in the truth. So we can't, the beauty of therapy is to help us to see where things started that are still where this tape that runs in the back of our mind, when that tape was inserted. If you don't know what a tape in a cassette, Google it. When that tape was inserted and who pressed play and how that tape has been playing in your life up until now, you have to find that tape. What is that tape? What is on that tape? Is what is on that tape true? Okay, if it's not true, then no wonder I'm experiencing this over here because I have been operating as if that is true all this time and it's not. So anyway, that's the beauty of having therapy. But you see how, okay, perfectionism. If nobody is affirming you just for you, if no one is telling you they love you and what they love about you that has nothing to do with getting an A or getting a gold medal or finishing first or scoring the most points, if you're not hearing that, if the only time you get acknowledgement personally is because of an achievement, then it's no wonder you're a perfectionist. because even though you don't know that you need nurturing and you don't know that you need validation and you don't know that you need affirmation as a kid, you don't know those terms, you crave that. That's a desire that we all come with. We all come with that need. And so you'll take it where you can get it. If I can't get someone to love me for me, I'll get them to love my score on the test. And so now your goal is to be the best at all the things so that someone can pay attention to that and talk to me about that because they don't talk to me about anything else. So it's it's really interesting because these things separately or just said casually don't seem like a big deal. And they certainly probably don't seem like a big deal to you as an adult. But if these things happen to you, and several of these things happen to you as a child, right? Um, then where you can't process and make sense of things as a child, you don't understand why things are happening. I've talked before about the ability to reason. It's really teenagers that really can really engage in reasoning, and it's not that they're not still impulsive, but they at least now have those two to work with. They can reason through issues where they might have reacted impulsively. Now they have the capability of reasoning. They have to continue to grow in that, but they at least are starting to develop that. But when you're experiencing things as a 2 year old, as a 5 year old, as an 8 year old, even if you know something is odd or off or something doesn't feel right, you don't know what that is. And you don't know who to take it to, especially if the person you would take it to is the person who doesn't want to be bothered with you. So you have to, as my kids would say, you have to eat that. You just eat that. And so now you're an adult full of messages that you're not worth my time. You're not worth my attention. You're not worth getting to know. You're not worth spending time with. You're not worth encouraging. You're not worth me telling you what I see in you. You're not worth telling you that I love you. You're not worth. Um, let's see. What? Let's go back. I'm dealing with you in a way so that you could walk away from me thinking, I'm not wanted. How am I supposed to feel secure in an environment where I don't even feel wanted? And heck, my mother as much told me when I was 15, I told you before if you saw another video, that I was not wanted. That I was not wanted. That I have essentially been tolerated all of this time. But what she meant, what that, I don't know what she meant to do when she said that. I can't imagine. If you're a mom, sometimes you get caught up and you say things that you don't mean, but that is that is mean. That is heartless. That is cruel. But it was a gift to me. It was a gift because it made things that I was like, this is so weird. Why is this like that? She wrapped it up in a bow for me and she labeled it. She put words to it. Something that was communicated in the sense of a vibe where I just, you know, me and my dad freaking frack. Like I was with him all the time, hung out with him all the time, because she was not available for that, and and that was the reason for her statement. She did not like apparently that I was close to him, even though she didn't want to be close to me. I guess what she wanted for me was to be completely isolated and to feel completely unwanted. I'm not sure. But it was a gift to me for her to say that, because she put words to something that I felt from a child, suffered through as a child, and couldn't put my finger on. And so once she said it, once she made it clear that she didn't want me, then it was just like, okay. It's like when you go to see your physician and you have these symptoms, and you're like, I don't know what's happening. This is how I feel. This is how long I've noticed it. I can't figure out what caused it. When they, look at the signs, look at your vitals, get a history and all the things, and they say, and they take the tests and they say, oh, it's this. Even though you don't like what this is, there's a relief to know what it's called. You know what you're now coming against. You know what this thing is that has attacked you, as it were, or that is in opposition to you. And so now you know what you're fighting. And I think that's probably when I got my focus about, um, oh wow, if this is what moms are doing, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna have to be a different type of mom, because what I'm experiencing, whatever all this is, a child should not experience. A child should not experience. And so even though had already decided I was pursuing medicine from the age of 6, that just really fueled, and pediatrics in particular, since the age of 6, that just really fueled it. That is what boosted me. Um, yeah, because no child should know what it's like. No child should be abused in any way, in any way. And the difficulty with emotional neglect and or deprivation, it's another way of saying it, is it is not seen. It is not seen. It is not easily identified. Nobody goes to school and the teacher notices, oh, you're emotionally deprived. But you know what they do notice? They notice that you're disruptive, that you were disruptive in class. And you're disruptive in class because any attention is better than no attention. And if you can't get positive attention at home, if you can't be affirmed, if you can't be loved, if you can't be hugged, if nobody wants to give you a kiss, if nobody says, "Hey, come sit by me and let's watch this movie," if you never have that, if nobody says, "You are so handsome, you are so beautiful, I love you in that dress, I saw you on the stage dancing and you looked amazing. You looked like a princess. You looked like you were having the best time." If you've never had someone engage you as if you matter and are delightful and are enjoyable and are wanted, then you will go places and you will cause a ruckus, because that child doesn't know that that's why they're doing it, but they're like, you're going to see me. You're going to see me. Somebody's going to see me. And if you're not going to see me just for being me, and you don't see me as someone lovable, and you don't see me as someone to be enjoyed, then I will be somebody who will cause a lot of trouble. But you will see me. So I don't know. This is half for um, you, helping you recognize if there's some things you need to look at in your childhood, like through some new lenses. Not to go and point your finger at your mama or any of that, but just so that you can be well. So that you can be well. So you can know what something is called, so then you know what you're working on. You know what you're fixing, you know what you're treating, you know what you want to overcome so that you don't do the same thing to your own child. And maybe you're listening to me and you realize I'm I'm depriving my child now. I'm not emotionally accessible to my children. I am withdrawn. I self isolate, which is something that adults do. It's something that they can do very easily if they have been neglected emotionally as a child. They put themselves to the side so that no one can be dismissive of them. You send yourself away so that no one sends you away and gives you the sense that I don't want to be bothered with you, or gives you the sense that I don't have time for you, that you're not worth my time, that you're not worth my energy. Instead of somebody giving you that sense, you just isolate yourself so that you can just skip all that. Let's just get to the part where I'm by myself. I don't need the part where you tell me that you don't like me or want to be bothered with me. I'll just go put myself over there. But then what does that do when you're an adult? Now your child feels like mommy doesn't want to be bothered with me. Mommy's always in her room. Mommy's always. So it's literally something where now I've had to be mindful of that. If I'm in my room, I keep my door open so that they know they're welcome to come see me. It's just that right now I want to be in my room. And then sometimes I notice, okay, why am I still in my room so long? Um, Part of it, real talk, is I've had to notice I was in my room a lot more I'm talking about as an adult woman, as a mom, when my children started becoming teenagers, and particularly my daughter, because her more so than my boys. I mean, all teenagers want to be to themselves, and they want, to establish an identity separate from their parents, even within the home that their parents are paying for. Like we've done it, we get it. But for me, because I had been emotionally deprived, that I don't want to be bothered with you, I had to realize that was a trigger that said to me, oh, you're not valued. You're not worthy of my time. And so I need to just isolate myself. So part of it also, for me, has been it's a constant growth journey. Um, just because you get therapy doesn't mean that everything is fixed and fine. What it has done for me is make me even more aware. I was aware enough as a child that this stuff is weird and it's off and it's not right. My mom doesn't engage with me the way I see moms on TV. Like not even some of that. It's very different than even what I was seeing on television, or what I was seeing at my friends' houses. So I knew something was off. I didn't know why. I didn't know what somebody would call it and label it and diagnose it as. I didn't know any of that. I just knew something was off. Now that I'm an adult, and now that I'm a mom, and now that I'm a mom who is particularly interested in showing up the healthiest way that I can as a woman, period, but certainly as a mom as well, I am grateful to be aware of more things that I can address, so that I am not propagating this and it's going on and on and on. And so, yeah, I'll do if I'm in my room for a while, thankfully I'll notice and I'm like, hey, and I'll leave my room and I'll go walk around, whatever kids are home at the time, and check in with them, see if they need anything from me, uh, tell them I love them, comment on what I see they're doing, ask them questions, show interest in what they're doing. I'm doing that because it would be easy for me to sit and say, well, you know what, my mom didn't show me much interest. And you know what? Let's just be grateful that I wasn't walking around dirty. and in raggedy clothes and hungry, right? And people always say somebody has it worse than you. And I've said it. And it's a pointless statement. It's a pointless statement. Just because something is more obvious doesn't mean that it's worse. Just because something is more in your face and you can readily identify it doesn't mean it's worse. To me, it's actually worse that a child suffers in silence for years, in isolation, loveless, and people by the people who gave life to them, and nobody knows and nobody notices, because the nature of that kind of neglect is not something that is like, hey, look how I'm neglecting this child. It's not an in your face thing. And it's not something that that child is going to run around and talk about. Not typically. And so, yeah, that whole people have it worse, people have it different, but people have it hard. We all have it hard in some kind of way. This world is whack. It's been whack ever since Adam and Eve screwed up. It's been whack. It's also wonderful. There's also still beauty in the world. But there's a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of things that are off. And people who are off and just keep it to themselves, they inherited it and they just pass it on. And that whole idea, I suffered through it and I lived, you can handle it too. Why should you have it any better than me? So if you're that mom who experienced emotional neglect, emotional deprivation, and you find yourself still operating in the effects of that, which now you realize, maybe from listening to me on this video and watching me, that you realize now you're depriving your child, even though that's not your intent. You're just trying, this is your survival skill that you've used to get this far. You're just surviving. You're not trying to harm or hurt anyone. Um, I just want you to know I see you. No judgment here. It's tough. It's tough to give what you weren't given. And so I encourage you to go get it. I encourage you to be open to people loving you, to not automatically isolate yourself because you want to avoid more of the rejection that you experienced as a child. Um, I think you're amazing for having come this far. I know what it's like to be suicidal. All the things. I know what it's like, and to be and to be mad at myself for being suicidal, because I'm like, what am I? Why am I this sad? I'm that sad because my mom didn't want to be bothered with me more than she had to be. And what's a child to do with that but to feel sad, deep sadness, when you have no explanation? Not that there really could be, well, explanation. Not that there is a good reason, but to not have an explanation, but to just know that she stays away from you intentionally until she has to do something for you. It's crappy. It's crappy. And so, let people love you. Let people love you. I don't know where I'd be if not for the Lord. Seriously. He sent people to love me before he introduced himself to me. And yeah, it is why I'm here. He is why I'm here. That love is why I'm here and able to love my children. I don't do it perfectly. I know I am very passionate about motherhood. I'm very passionate on about my perspectives on motherhood, and I'm like that because I know what it feels like when a mom just chucks it, just thinks, whether she thinks she doesn't matter in her child's life or whether she decides she doesn't want to be a part of her child's life. The vacuum that she leaves, I know that vacuum. I lived it, and I wouldn't wish it on my enemy. And so, with whatever time I have left, that is my that is my mission, is to get you and mothers like you to understand there is no one like you in your child's life. No one. And if you were neglected as a child and you still haven't dealt with any of that, and all of that sadness, that longing, that void is weighing you down and keeping you from being able to be in your child's life, really be in his or her life, go and talk with someone about it. Get that off you. Get that weight off you. I'm sorry your mom dropped the ball. I'm sorry she didn't realize her significance in your life or didn't want to have that significance in your life. But she's not the end all be all. She's integral. She was integral, but she's not the center of your life. And don't make her that. Recognize that she made a decision that hurt you and that you are able to make a different one. You're able to make the decision to go get help, to work through your past and the pain of it. You are able to make a decision to intentionally be open to connection with women your age, in terms of friendship, with women older than you, so that they can mentor you and pour into you and speak into you the things that you never received, give you the hugs, give you the, the cooked meals served with love and sitting down and talking over a cup of tea or whatever. But with an older woman, time with an older woman who wants to spend time with you. And then, girl, get in there and show up for your kids. Just be present. I'm not I'm not putting a demand on you about what it has to look like, but if you've been neglected as a child, as an adult, um, you can see how you move through life, and you can recognize I do things real different than other people. I wonder why that is. And now that you've heard me in this video, you have some things you can think about and be like, is that it? Was I emotionally neglected and in a way feeling emotionally handicapped? But I'm proud of you for being. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that um, you have your kiddos, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to just have a heart to heart with you. And I just encourage you to keep moving toward them. Keep moving toward them and keep moving toward a better version of you. Keep keep thinking forward. Keep thinking how you could be the start of a whole different a whole different narrative in your family. I don't know what my mom went through as a child. She doesn't talk about it. So part of what's been helpful for me is how candid I am about it. I'm not keeping that locked up. I suffered in silence as a child. I will not suffer in silence as an adult. So I'm candid with my kids. My kids know that they love their grandma, and they know that their grandma was a very limited mom to me. And I have explained to them that a lot of why I do what I do and I am what I am, and the way I show up with them, and you know the way I move toward them, even though I wasn't moved toward in that same way. I let them know sometimes I'm having to make myself because it's for their good. My kids know, and I want them to know, because I want them to know what has been in the past, but that it stops now. We're doing a new thing. I'm not going to just lay down and be part of the narrative that has been, whatever that has been. I'm doing a new thing, and I'm doing it for them because they are worth it. I was not meant to feel worth it by my mom, but my kids are worth it to me. And whatever transformation it takes for me to heal from that junk in my childhood so that I can enjoy my life and enjoy my children and set them up to enjoy their lives and their children, I'm here for it. And if it takes me making videos like this, I'm here for that too. Because I want that for your family too. That's how things change. We're always talking about this world is going to hell in a handbag, as they say. But the more of us who, in just our corner of the world, deal with our stuff so that we can love on our kids and make an impact in our family line, the more moms doing that is the more families on in more neighborhoods, in more cities, towns, a whole movement spreads. And we have healthier children, healthier families, because people are speaking out about what was and how it affected them, and how going forward we're not doing that anymore. We're doing it a new way. So I hope that helps. Um, it helped me to process out loud. I'm grateful for the weather being compliant. I thought it was going to rain me out. But yeah, I hope that helped. Emotional deprivation. That's exactly what it was. Exactly what it was. So I have a project to get back to. And until next time, when it comes to you being the mother of your children, whether you were emotionally deprived or not, you are the woman for the job. And I'm rooting for you. Take care.